Welcome, everyone, to the Miss Art World podcast. I am your host, Catherine. I have my co-host, Samuel Cooksey, with us with Samuel Cooksey Project.
Howdy, 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 everybody.
And today we have Jason Jenn with LA Art Documents, whose mission is documenting, preserving, and curating the contemporary art scene in Los Angeles and beyond. Welcome, Jason.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Jason is also an amazing artist. Before we begin, can you tell people where to go to find the LA Art Documents, and then also where to go to find your work too?
Absolutely, that's why I'm here. You can find us online at laaartdocuments.com. And then we have our social media, which we love. Instagram is art.documents. And then we have our Facebook page. And then you can find me at jasonjenn.com or Jason Jenn Artist on Instagram. Those are the kind of primary mediums we like, and YouTube. We love our YouTube channel for LA Art Documents. That's where we post all of the videos that we create. So there's this catalog of some really wonderful documentation of both exhibitions and performances online.
How big is the space there that most of the performances are, or like the gallery almost?
So we don't have a set physical space. LA Art Documents is actually, we go around to different gallery spaces and we document shows and exhibitions. And then we also can be hired to, document someone's live performance so that it's preserved for posterity. Being artists ourselves, Vojislav, Radovanović, my partner, and myself, we both have backgrounds as visual artists, as media specialists. I have a background in performance art. Vojislav is Serbian, and he went to the same school as Marina Abramović. And so he has this entrenched background of performance art as well. And he was a TV journalist for different art programs in Europe. So he has this journalism background. And when he moved to Los Angeles in 2017, we met. We were collaborating on a project. At the time, I worked for a media company that was managing the video screens at LAX's international terminal. And my boss was like, let's find some artists to collaborate with. And I met Vojislav and we started to collaborate. And we just realized that we both have this common background in video documentation, and that there was a need to create, more documentation of the LA art scene and to provide, this preservation. I've lived here since 1998. And for the past probably 12, 15 years, I was documenting the underground performance art scene. So it just kind of made sense that the two of us joined forces and started LA Art Documents based out of a business he had in Serbia called Art Documents. And then we basically were like, okay, let's do this. And we started since the fall of 2017.
So when you're documenting it, what's the normal setup that you have? Do you have a bunch of camera equipment, or just have your one that you go?
Yeah, we both. So we are a team. We collaborate. So we're often working in tandem with each other. We have two different cameras that we use. We use a Panasonic. I can't remember the fancy name, UX, blah blah blah, and the Sony Alpha, and then iPhones for certain things. And we basically have a set of tracks, tripods. We go in and we do coverage. We both shoot. We can, when we need to, we can individually shoot, but sometimes we go in a pair, and then one person has a particular skill or an eye. Vojislav is really good at using the tracks so that we get these beautiful panning shots of images, and then we'll kind of switch and take over. So we get these different perspectives. And then when we're editing, one of us will usually set up the shot, and another one comes in and gives like, hey, I think this would be, maybe this sequence would be better. And we really work well together as a team. And that's what I love about working with Vojislav, is that there's two of us. And when people, it's nice to have that, the different eyes looking at something and achieving a beautiful look. I tend to be more of the storyteller, and Vojislav tends to be more of the making sure everything is visually on point. He's so sharp on that. There are things he does that I can't do, but that's why it's great that we work together.
So is editing probably the longest part, or like the most time consuming,
really
or is it
can be.
filming?
Yes, it
Okay.
really can be. I don't know if you've ever had to do some editing in front of a computer, but it can be super simple, and you'll get a particular thing, but when you really want to immerse yourself and get deep, that's where things get tricky and complicated. And color correction, you know, one of the banes of our existence is when we go into a gallery and we're like, there's two different color temperatures of the lights, you know, like they're not even aware of it, but like, you know, or some of the new LEDs have a particular frequency of flicker rate. So all of these things have to be taken into account when you're using cameras. And so it's really interesting from a curator perspective, because we also curate work. What you can see behind me is from our current show that is closing this weekend at Angels Gate Cultural Center called Sanctuary of the Aftermath. But when we're curating, we really had to think about like what, you know, are you setting a warm tone? Are you setting a cold tone? How's the outside light affect things?
Mm-hmm.
So when we're
with the flicker rate, do you see it as you're filming, or no? Do you have to, when you go back into the computer, then you see it?
Sometimes you see it, and sometimes you don't see it until afterwards. But there are ways to adjust. So we've made adjustments. But it's something that people, you know, we were at an event once documenting for this artist Kayla Tonge, and we were shooting this, you know, shooting her inside this beautiful cube of plexiglass with LED lights along the side. And a woman, you know, ran up to Vojislav and was like, how are you doing this? I can't, like, how are you shooting this? My phone is freaking out from the lights. So he had to like help her adjust while he's still documenting the
Oh, no.
So it's things like that. But, you know, these are wonderful problems to have, I guess. Not wonderful, but they're just, you know, with advances in technology, this is what we're dealing with. So. And there's always a learning curve. We're always learning something new from seeing these exhibitions, from documenting something. Experience really does matter and come into play. And, you know, it's just a pleasure to be able to see all these shows when we can. And that we're, you know, re-emerging. So
yes. Are you, do you just wait until artists are wanting to hire you, or do you kind of pick and choose the different shows that you will want to go and document as well?
Oh, we love it when people reach out to us, because we love to like work with them and talk about what they want, you know, from the get-go. But we love also exploring, you know, the exhibitions around town. So we really love to curate the scene.
What's been like one of the most memorable things that you guys have come across?
Ooh, really good question. I mean, we are so blessed to be in Los Angeles with so many great shows and experiences. As I mentioned before, documenting Kayla Tonge's show at Human Resources was really fun, because I was positioned in like the crow's nest up above balcony and shooting down at this, you know, wonderful group of people gathered, and Vojislav was, you know, in the trenches, if you want to say, and like moving around and getting shots. But you know, recent exhibitions, I don't know if you've been out and about, but I definitely love the Made in LA 2020 at the Huntington Library, and the recently closed Jeffrey Deitch show, Shattered Glass. Those were really great shows. I'm loving, you know, just that there's so much activity happening. And MOA Lancaster is always on the favorite of places to go visit. It's definitely worth the trip out that way.
It's a beautiful building and location. I'm very impressed for Lancaster. Samuel and I grew up in Palmdale, and our parents still live out there. And so we are able to go visit that museum often, and it's just every time I'm in there, I'm like, wow, the Antelope Valley has some like a gem for art. It's amazing.
But yeah, Lancaster is a great example of what an art institution can do by, putting it down in the center of the downtown like that. It really permeates outward of this culture, knowing that there's all the murals that are also from it. I love community art. I love public art, and think that when it's done well, it's really exciting. It's one of the things that I loved traveling around Europe was you'd always turn a corner and there'd be some monument, some statue, some really interesting art piece or something to see. And you don't see it as frequently in the United States, but I do think in recent years there have been more, there's been a more opening up of having murals and graffiti arts and things.
Well, that's why I like LA, because you walk through and there's a lot of graffiti art all over the place. And I love taking pictures of the graffiti art all around, because I live very close to Venice and there's always those artwork pieces that are going up, and it's a fun place to kind of run around.
Well, and one thing that I noticed from your Instagram is you guys are all over. You were in New York. I think you were in Miami as well. And I'm curious, because you have such breadth in travels and seeing different art scenes, how does LA compare to other places that you've been?
Really, really great question. I do think so. LA is a very exciting space with so much happening, and I think there's a great deal of talent here. Back in 2006, I believe, I had the opportunity to go over to Paris, to the Pompidou Center, where they had an exhibition honoring 35 years of Los Angeles art. My mentor, Rachel Rosenthal, performance artist, I went with her. She had a piece on view in the exhibition, and it was honoring all these greats, Ed Moses, John Baldessari, all of these LA greats. And it was sort of Paris's way of saying the crown of contemporary art now belongs to Los Angeles, which the joke was, well, they're upset because New York took the crown away from them, in the middle of last century. But I do think that I'm seeing a trend of more and more people moving to Los Angeles, definitely from New York and San Francisco. People from those cities used to always look down on Los Angeles, and now it's interesting that they're moving to Los Angeles. And having lived here for 22 years, going on 23 years now, I've loved it. Yes, there are times where I'm not thrilled living here with the traffic and different aspects, but I just love the energy and the opportunity that's here. And I think a lot of that is because of the Hollywood industry. It brings so much talent here. So you have job opportunities for people who are talented visual artists that are able to then work, in the film industry for a while and balance both of those things. So I think it's just fantastic what LA brings. But I do think there is a level of, with anything that is so big like Los Angeles, that you do have some things that are maybe surface level, or they're just, they're not the greatest works of art that you've ever seen. But I think that's what's exciting, is that there's so much opportunity here. It's also can be very competitive. I mean, I think everyone's experienced that sense of like disappointment when they didn't receive, a participation in something, because there's so many people in Los Angeles. But at the same time, that's what makes it so exciting. And you can always see something. There's always something to do here, which can be a bit of a problem, because you can be distracted. You can think that you're going to get something done, and then all of these, great events and great things are happening.
I was just gonna say, especially as you get to know artists and then you want to support them, Like I have fallen in love with Tag Gallery because I'm close to Ryan. And so every time they have an opening, I want to be there, I want to go. And it just, you only have so many weekends to work on your own artwork. So it's juggling that support as well as being a creator is difficult.
Yeah, I had to give up many years ago that sense of upset over people not coming to see my show. You know, we have this amazing exhibition at Angels Gate Cultural Center right now called Sanctuary of the Aftermath, and it's been up since the beginning of April. But it's a big request to ask people to travel all the way down to the southernmost point in Los Angeles County of San Pedro. Beautiful space. If anyone out there is listening and has never been there, it's worth going, whether there's an exhibition or not, because it's this beautiful vista overlooking. You can see the Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach from one angle, which is the largest port in the United States, and you can see the ocean. It's basically former military barracks that were used in World War II that have been converted to 50 artist studios and an art gallery. And so when we received the award to present our exhibition there, we were really excited because it's a beautiful space. And you can kind of see from my works in the photo, for the show and for the past year, I've been particularly interested in site-specific art based on gathering leaves and other materials, seed pods and droppings from the tree, and then pinning them to the wall to create these mandalas. There are a lot of artists who do mandalas with leaves, but what I do is treat them with gold or copper leaf, kind of a pun, a leaf on a leaf, and create these beautiful, awe-inspiring pieces that are pinned to the wall. I kind of see them as acupuncture of a sort visually, so that you're pinning to the wall. It's almost like butterflies being pinned, on display, but they're leaves. And the way that I've treated them reflects the light and sort of gives, from what I've, from people who have been responding to them, they have this sense of awe from them. And the goal is to remind people of our connection to nature. There's definitely a play with the mix of natural materials and the synthetic artificial gold and copper leaf that I put on. So there's that's what our world is all about, is this combination of the natural.
When you put them up, is there a way to take them down so it's the exact same piece, or no? Like once it's up,
it's,
you take it down.
I'm sure. As a performance artist, you get used to creating these ephemeral things, and documentation is the only thing that's left. And documentation is a watered down form, or no, it's a flattened version of something that's three-dimensional, that's meant to be seen in person. And I've had to let go. There's a certain sense of you create something and you put it out there, you honor it, you feel these works particularly, I feel, create an energy in the space. But then you document it and then you move on. And that's why documentation is so important to have, because sometimes a single photograph or a poorly rendered video doesn't really do the justice that seeing something in person can do. Nothing can really replicate that in-person experience. I've been, this past year, virtual tours have been, very hit and miss. I'm not a huge fan of trying to navigate through virtual experience, although I feel very grateful that we have a virtual tour of this exhibition, because it is nice for people to be able to see the layout. But what we do at LA Art Documents is we're curating the vision. We're really controlling how people are going to experience the art, and we always try to make the documentation reflect the type of experience that the artwork deserves and is trying to communicate. So sometimes it takes beautiful pans and close-ups, and you want to see the texture of paints. You want to see the visceral aspects. So that answers what your question was. Yeah, these pieces are going to be gone, and they're decomposing as it is, because they're dead, dried leaves. I have preserved them a little bit by coating them with Mod Podge, which prevents air from breaking them down faster. They will eventually crumble. But
did you have the idea in your head as you were pinning it, or did you gather them and then as you went came up with the designs?
Initially this project, I had no intention of creating mandalas, but I was in a show at El Camino College called What Is It About Trees, curated by Susanna Mayers. She's the director of the art gallery at El Camino. And I live 10 minutes from there, and I proposed to her a project where I would basically visit the campus and do a series of meditations with different trees on the campus and document those trees and document the process and see what came up from the meditation. And she loved the idea. And about a month into visiting the trees, I was meditating and the sunlight hit my eyelids as I was there. And I saw a vision of a mandala, and particularly a ring of sycamore leaves around the outer ring. So I knew that I was going to create mandalas. So that's when I started gathering the leaf materials. Andy Goldsworthy, if you're familiar with his work as an environmental and land-based artist, is a big inspiration. And I've used leaves before to create patterns and stuff, as an homage to Andy Goldsworthy. But this is the first time I've done something a little different by taking them and preserving them and pinning them to the wall.
So for the people that don't know what a mandala is, can you explain what it is?
A mandala is used as a way. It's like a map of the world, and so it's a circular, generally drawing or some kind of pattern that is circular in nature, and it is in a lot of Eastern philosophies. The idea of it represents the larger macrocosm, but in a small form. So it's sort of their way of imagining the universe or the cosmos or the world, but in an artistic format. And so oftentimes you will get mandalas that are like sand mandalas in Tibet, where they'll create this amazingly beautiful pattern out of sand, and then it'll blow away. It'll exist for a bit, and then they start over. They just brush it aside. It's this idea that we're all temporary. We're all, part of this cycle of life. We all die, and something else comes to take our place.
Is that the same? This might be a really stupid question. Is that the same with the sand that's on your desk, and you got the little rake and you could rake it? Is that what you're supposed to do?
That's a Zen garden. Yeah, it's similar, but that's not, instead of a sand mandala, that is like a Zen garden. Funny enough, we have an artist in Sanctuary of the Aftermath. Again, I mentioned her before, Kayla Tange, who her inspiration is a Zen garden, and she has a rake, and she has a light up sandbox that it illuminates from underneath. So when you put the rake over the sand, you can see the light coming through. It's a beautiful piece. It's been one of the most popular. I work at the Torrance Art Museum as well, and I got to curate. I have a show coming up this summer that I'm curating in Gallery 2, and then I curated in 2019 Kayla's work, and it was the most popular thing. People were coming back to the museum so that they could draw in the sand.
That's cool.
Can you talk a little bit about the curating process and how you go about it? And
Well, I think viewers hopefully will know that curating means to care, and there is a lot of care that is needed when you curate something. It's a lot of planning. Vojislav and I talked a lot about our philosophy of curating, which fortunately we have similar perspectives, which is a combination of really being on top of things and staying organized and making sure that like there's good communication, that you select great art. There's a lot of planning that's needed. And then there's a lot of this sort of like in the moment inspiration and allowing things organically to take shape. So to me, there's this balance between the two of them. And there's a lot of that in performance art as well. My training in improvisational performance art, where you have to balance this sort of knowing what you're doing, but also allowing whatever comes up in the moment. So for our show, we curated, we had 8 artists originally in the show. And then as time went on and we realized there were some other artists that needed to be included. So it grew to 11 artists. But we also wanted to make sure that each art piece had its own space, its own integrity. We wanted pieces of art to communicate with each other. There's this sort of dialogue that you're creating with the artworks. When you put one artwork next to another artwork, they're going to have a context that they're creating. So curation really has to think about what you're putting next to another and what dialogue that's bringing up. So, you know, there have been cases where a curator will put one object in front of another object and it completely changes the meaning of both objects by being next to each other. So we were very conscious of that for this show, but we also were very organic, and our exhibition, Sanctuary of the Aftermath, included artworks that were pre-made, that were ones that we picked that existed for years and we knew what was going to like be there. And then we also gave opportunities for 5 artists, I think it was 5, to create brand new works. And we didn't really know, we didn't force them into any particular thing. We just said, you know, this is the theme. We trust what you're going to do. And we were in communication, and the result was really stunning. And we're, you know, it's sort of this balancing act. And, you know, our show is about works of art that address contemporary issues, but have a spiritual component to them. Not necessarily religious, not denominational, but that there's some process that the artists were using that you could see the art process as spiritual. To me, you know, Vojislav, I know particularly, you know, he has no practice, but art is his spirituality. And it's a love, you know, we have a guy, Jeff Frost, who's a video artist, who created an agnostic ritual with his video piece. And so we have this, you know, a lot of different elements in this show, and it was beautiful how it all came together. There was a sort of spirit that was guiding it.
How often are you able to curate shows? Is it, I know it can be a long process.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. You know, I just thought of that recently. You know, we have a lot of ideas for shows that we'd like to do, and I have so many people that I just love their work, and I'm like, I can so see a show, you know, someday in the future. But it is so much work, and you do have to, you know, being an artist yourself, you have to balance out like how much energy you're putting out and how much you're putting into your own work. So I want to be, you know, I'm trying, I you know, it's like I haven't curated loads of things, but I have done a lot of, you know, planning and organizing performance art events, curating performance art. And I you know, for me, it's important that as many wonderful ideas as I have in my head, just to focus on quality over quantity. And I'm really proud of the upcoming exhibition that is currently being installed at Torrance Art Museum this summer, on July 17th. We're opening the museum again. It's been 16 months closed. If you've never been to Torrance, it's a great time to come. On July 17th, we're having a reopening ceremony with live performance art. 3 different performers that I've curated are going to be doing durational performances. And then I have an exhibition in Gallery 2 called Even Sparkles Have Shadows. You would love it, I'm sure, because it's all about things that sparkle but have a deeper, darker story to them.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah. And then the launch of this public art exhibition called Ultra that the staff members have been organizing and put together, so that there's like 20 different places around the city of Torrance where people can go and view art, from the high schools to City Hall to the library to places in the mall, parks. I'm really excited about the ones that are in the parks. So it's like this, we've been shut down for quite a while, but it's allowed time for other things to come out of it. I'm in charge of the outreach, which includes social media and web and stuff like that. And we initiated a program of the staff writing personal essays about artists they love. And I actually came out to Los Angeles to be a writer, to be a screenwriter, and did not know that my journey was going to take me a completely different route. I call it the left-handed route. I took a left turn. So it's really nice to write about these artists that I admire, and to think about how that connects with my own life and my own journey. And particularly thinking of what will be interesting to the public. We've all created art pieces that are narcissistic in some ways. I've used narcissists as a theme in a lot of my works, because we're in a society where you're, having to self-promote, you're having to put yourself out there. I mean, a lot of your work deals with those aspects of, Miss Art World.
Yeah.
I love that, and we can't deny that there's this intrinsic element in us as people. We have an ego. A healthy ego is a good thing. An unhealthy ego is not. Narcissism, that is a condition, as we know from leaders in the country, is not good. But it is important that to reflect on these issues. And I lost my train of thought, but the point was that that we were dealing with these what's important to share with people. And a lot of my artwork has been, I want to move people. I want to educate and entertain people at the same time. I've always liked to leave people inspired and uplifted. I get a little disappointed when there's artwork that leaves you a little cold, or a little bit like, John Baldessari, I will not make any more boring art. I don't want to create boring art. I want to create something that actually affects someone in some, in a way. And I tend to be more of a comforter rather than a provocateur. Although I have an alter ego, the trickster troubadour, who purposely likes to, propose things that provoke people and to profound, in profound ways. So the trickster is an important archetype.
Do you have any performances coming up for yourself?
No, I have, it's been important to kind of take time off. I say that, but I think I do have some performances coming up. But for the time being, I did create during this pandemic some video art. I had a show last January in 2020 that I performed, which I was really excited to tour with. And I was starting to submit proposals. It was called Ecstasy for Everyone. And it was actually based on this queer poet named James Broughton, who was a visionary filmmaker and poet. And the show is me reciting his poems with a performance art twist based on some of his film. He's an amazing artist, really out there, and his one of his mottos was, "I believe in ecstasy for everyone." So the show was this like ecstatic celebration of life, and I started off the year like really pumped up and really excited, and you know, that's not how things go, and that's okay. It's been a really tough year for a lot of people. I feel very fortunate that that I had certain things in place to keep me grounded, and I live 10 minutes from the beach, and I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm a huge beach person, but now I am. I've been going to the beach. I've gone to the beach this past year more than I ever had in my 20 years combined in Los Angeles. So this one year, more than 20 years combined because of that, because of having, needing to have that experience of getting outside and walking and taking in nature during this pandemic. So I created a lot of video art during the, performance art was sort of videos that were performance art, or directing other people to create some video.
Do you have a piece right now that is your favorite piece that you've done?
Ooh, yeah. Well, Ecstasy for Everyone is, it's interesting because it's not my work, but it is so me in that show, because I'm embodying another person's words, but I'm able to so be myself. And some audience members were, that know me, friends and colleagues who know my work, even said that to me before, like, wow, this piece is so you, like, and yet you're doing somebody else's work. I did a piece in 2019 called Creatures with a Q, and it was a beautiful piece to be able to do. It was for the kid in all of us, and it was at an art gallery. I like doing art. I like doing site-specific work. I love the challenge of an unusual location outside of the theater to do a performance. I like performing in galleries. I like performing in outdoor spaces. I know some people hate that, and it can be very scary and daunting, but I love trying to figure out how to create something for a particular space and for an unusual setup for the audience as well. But personal favorites, I have so many children that I love.
Was there anyone that had like a very particular, you talked about doing the poems. Is there anyone that you look back on and go like, that was not necessarily me, or that was like, not saying that you regret any, but is one that's kind of like,
I got, early on in my career in 2004, I had the opportunity to present a epic, show at Highways Performance Space. And, Rachel Rosenthal was my mentor. She was really excited about it. In the context of our workshops and everything, it was great. We put the cast together. We really had to rush it through the process. It was a lot of fun, but it was like we didn't really have as much time to rehearse as possible, and the LA Times hated it. The critic, the one critic. But it was one of those things where it's like, oh my God, like you're getting this like scathing review on something. Basically, it went over her head. And looking back on it, it is a problematic piece. There's things I'm like, yeah, could have been better. But you learn from that. You learn from your failures and your mistakes. And it's out there in the world. It's a head scratcher. My older sister came and flew out to Los Angeles and saw it. I don't think she was like, I don't know what you were doing, but I think Catherine, you would have loved it though, because it had all kinds of really great, bizarro stuff in it.
The weirder, the better in my book.
Yeah.
So did your family come and see a lot of your pieces?
No, they've always been, I'm the weird one of the family, and they've all known that. They're all like, it's great that you're weird. They don't say that, but that's the kind of thought that. So I did do a show specifically for my family in Iowa. I would go back every year to work on my cousin's organic farm for a 3-year period. And when I went back, I would do what I called my unorthodox spiritual cabaret, which was based on storytelling and singing a cappella songs that had it was part of the trickster troubadour persona, that they were really kind of twisting your perspective of what you think about certain archetypal issues. I'm trying to give you an example. I have a story that I tell about my grandfather that he told me. And he's like, Jason, I have this problem and I really need your help. You see, for all my life, I was a farmer and my hands were in the soil and I worked with the land and I was always in touch with the processes of the earth. And the problem is I don't like the way that I am buried. So if you would go to my grave and dig up my body and take me out of the box and lay my remains into the earth and cover me back up and plant all manner of, flowers and crops and plants. And even though I know that, my spirit is free, my physical body yearns to give back to the, to the earth and to grow again and to feel the process of life. So it's like telling the story of like, I'm kind of, this was an abbreviated version, but to kind of lead people down a path and then suddenly like, whoa, wait a minute, your grandfather told you this story, which he did in a dream. And to be able to like make people think about how how we are burying ourselves, how we treat death, how we are disconnected from the cycles of life. I mean, when I die, I want to have a tree planted over me. I want my body's remains to be absorbed by the tree. I used to always say in my next life, I want to be a cloud because I love clouds. I love looking at how they're, taking on all these shapes and shape shifting and floating. But as we know, our planet needs more trees. Right?
So your grandpa told you the story in a dream?
Basically, that's what, yes.
Had he already, or has he passed away?
Oh yeah. Okay. This was like, this vision came to me like 10 years after his death.
Did you?
I have not gone to his grave to dig him up, but
okay, I was gonna say that
I will get arrested, and I don't think my family will like that. But
Yeah.
at least I can tell the story and make people think about it.
Can you, not saying you should dig people up, but can you bury yourself without being in a coffin?
Yes, there are some places now you can. There's a lot of legal work to do because our laws are. I do not want to be pumped full of chemicals. I would like to decompose, but yeah, there are different webs. There are now sites that you can go to and like put your body in special remains that will. It takes. There's a process involved.
Yeah. Well, it's just like you bring that up, or you bring it up just as kind of an odd thing to think that you would be pumped full of things to help you not decompose, when the natural order of everything is to decompose part of the earth again.
But isn't that what humanity has done? I mean, we've removed ourselves from the cycles of life. We've removed ourselves. We've created these structures that basically completely, we want to remove all insects. We want to remove all life, outside other than the plants, which I see that you have, which is, great. But
that one's great.
Yeah, but we remove ourselves, it's like, ew, gross. I'm not, I can't say I'm a huge camping fan, but I like to camp. And like, I like to go on hikes and be in nature, So I try to remind myself of, my childhood, which was playing in rivers and streams and forests and stuff. But like anyone as an adult, we kind of remove ourselves. but I would like when I die to decompose.
It's interesting to see that kind of philosophy within the work that you are doing.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's poetic. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Before we talk way too long, my last question for you is, for the LA art documents, is there anything coming up for you guys specifically that you would like to promote, or any like maybe last thoughts on?
You know, it's as you probably know, it's so difficult in our world to be heard, to be like, to get attention without, spending an enormous amount of money on advertising. There's so much noise in the world, and what our philosophy is, we want to create the best quality work that we can that represents the artist, and we do what we can to do that, so that the artist can really put their best foot forward, because you're putting so much heart and soul into your artwork and to set up an exhibition, and then it's gone. So that, it's ephemeral, and we want to help we want to help people to keep that work going, so that they can submit it to other places and you really, sometimes you only get one chance with a curator or an institution, and you really want to make sure it's the best quality work that you can. So for us, it's really important. We'd love for people to follow us on YouTube and Instagram. In this day and age, we want to organically grow. We're not about, getting these ghost accounts or trying to get the most followers and this and that. We just want to really engage with people and hope that they're loving what we're producing. It's really important for us that we produce stuff that people are going to love, and we know that they're going to, follow us, because you're going to enjoy the journey. You're going to see something, whether you may not like one artist's piece that we're documenting, but you'll like something else. And so we always have new stuff that's coming up. I mean, it's really exciting. I love that process of going in to see someone's show and be like, okay, how can we do this? How are we going to, what is the first image? What is the last image? Interviewing someone, like, how do you take out the ums and make it so that people are really saying what they're wanting to say without getting tripped up on public speaking and all of that stuff, because it's tricky.
Especially for artists who are so not verbal communicators, I think most of the time. Then to put them in front of a camera and say, talk about your art.
Yeah, the work should speak for itself, but sometimes it is nice to have.
Mm-hmm.
I always like when an artist tells me what their work's about. It's like my go-to, because I look at it, and there's a certain point where I'm just like, okay, now you tell me what you really wanted me to get from it. But they hate it. Every time I've ever asked artists that, they hate that question.
Yeah. No, I like it. One of the things that's been interesting about this pandemic is this whole idea of a virtual opening and doing Zooms. I mean, here we are Zooming right now. There's a sort of love-hate that I have with Zooms, with social media. I mean, it's a love-hate relationship. Sometimes I got to take a break from everything, but it's provided a chance for people to, I've gone to openings where I would never hear the artist talk about their work. I would just see them getting drunk or just see the work and just, see someone else and get caught up in the socializing. So I miss that socializing aspect, but I also have enjoyed, you really get to hear an artist talk about their work, and you really understand it, get a sense of it. And I love your cat.
I don't know what she's doing in the background. She's climbing into her lamp.
Yeah, I miss Yeah.
Well, Mama's outside, so that's what's making her go crazy, because she's doing yoga. If you ever watched the video, you saw a woman crawl across the floor behind me.
Yes.
That's funny. Well, thank you so much for spending this hour with us and telling us about everything that you guys are doing. And it's just interesting. I wish that your show was up longer because I'd love to go see it, but I know it's ending. I think today is the last day, right?
Today's the last day.
Uh,
Yeah, it's bittersweet. We're tearing down tomorrow. We're having we are having a few people see it tomorrow before. Like it's supposed to be like artists to come together, um, and then close the show. But yeah, it's been such a pleasure, and to know that we have gotten some great reviews and feedback from people, and that's, we've moved people. Angels Gate's very happy with it, so we know that there's life to this show yet, because the themes are important, that it deals with the contemporary challenges, but in a way that is going to uplift people. So we need that right now. I do feel like, the art world needs to obviously respond to everything that's going on, from Black Lives Matter to social movements, Asian issues. Like, we are in an ever increasing daunting world, and the environmental catastrophe that we're still having to deal with. I hope the art world, like, art has the potential to heal. It really has this sacred role throughout time, and that was the start of this exhibition, was like the sacred role that art has played throughout history. Like, we want to feature that. Mm-hmm. And so I think that we're definitely going to continue this thread, as we do have a show that is going to happen next summer at Cal State LA. Vojislav and I are curating, called Memories of Tomorrow's Sunrise. We like our poetic titles. And so we're really excited to continue this conversation. It's a conversation that we're having with these artists, and that's our goal.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And thank you for the conversation today. And it's great to see you and know what you're doing, and hear from other artists that you're interviewing. It's great.
I was looking at what you guys, or the recent things that you did with I think Ibuki that you had. I don't know, Samuel, if you were able to see that, but she was performing within the space, and it was just so cool because we had just talked to her.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. And yeah, she's going to be in the summer doing a performance art piece painting stuff. But yeah, we it's a pleasure. Like, we were like, we documented a lot more. We just put out a 1 minute sort of teaser just to get it out there. But
I'm excited to see more, because I thought it was very well done. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's that kind of stuff. It's like, it's like, let's play, let's have fun, let's really, we're only here for a limited time, so let's make the most of it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So then tell us where people can find everything you do.
LAAD Documents, LAART Documents. I'm not going to spell it out, but documents.com. You can do art.documents, look up art documents. We're there. We have a square logo with LA and art documents. And then jasonjenn.com. That's JASONJENN. I love that I have a masculine and feminine name. It's my real name, jasonjenn.com. And then Vojislav Radovanović. You can look him up on LAAD Documents for the spelling of that. But I like to I call him Mr. Vojislav. So that's an easier way to memorize his name, Mr. Vojislav.
Mr. Vojislav. That's great.
And he sends his regards, and sorry you couldn't be here, but maybe you can talk to him at some future point.
Yeah, we can definitely connect with him when he's free. Well, thank you everyone for listening. As always, you can find us on YouTube now if you want to watch us all talk to each other through Zoom. That's always fun. You can see Samuel's cat getting into his lamp. And that is on the Miss Art World YouTube channel. You can also find us on missartworld.com, where you can find the list of this episode as well as previous episodes. And then we are also on Instagram at Miss Art World Podcast. So thank you so much. And as always, love you.
Blessings.